Hello everyone, Coach Lise here, coming to you live from beautiful Barbados. Let's take in a little bit of this scenery. Hi. Now, it might very well start raining on me. Also, I got a lot of mosquitoes I'm dealing with right now, but you know what? It's all worth it. So, anyway, I hope everyone's had a great week. Wanted to come to you and talk about closing out this week of self-trust. That was our theme for this week, self-trust, which is a great follow-on from last week's week of grace. And I've been thinking a lot about what self-trust actually means. And the reason why is because sometimes I think we misunderstand. We think trusting ourselves means being certain that I really should trust myself. I should know exactly what to do. I shouldn't ever second guess myself. I shouldn't need advice. I shouldn't be afraid. But I don't believe that's self-trust at all. Self-trust isn't knowing you'll always get it right. It's knowing you will be there for yourself when you don't. And that's a very different thing. I thought about this week through the lens of my own life. And not that long ago, I made one of the biggest decisions of my life. And after spending more than 30 years in McKinsey, an organization that had been an enormous part of my life, I made the decision to leave and something new. And I can tell you, I did not have every answer, far from it. And I was scared. But I know courage often requires discomfort. I didn't know exactly what this next chapter would look like. I didn't know how everything would unfold, and yes, there were moments when I questioned myself. But at some point, I had to stop and ask myself, can I be certain this is going to work? And I also asked myself, do I trust myself enough to find my way? Those are very different things. And I think I may have said that first thing wrong. What I wanted to say, I had to stop asking myself, can I be certain? Because we certainly know that's not the case. So these are very two different things. But when I look back over my life, I realized something we talked about this week. I've already navigated things I once didn't know how to handle. I've made difficult decisions. I've experienced pain. I've made mistakes. I've adjusted. I've learned. I've started over. I've gone through things I could have never planned for, and I'm still here. That's evidence, and that's sometimes what we forget. We become so focused on the uncertainty in front of us that we forget about the wisdom behind us. That's why one of my favorite thoughts from this week has been, a moment of doubt doesn't erase a lifetime of wisdom. Doubt is going to show up. It certainly showed up for me. And I've learned that I can question myself without abandoning myself. And that's an important distinction. We also talked about this week about how we often already know what we need, but we continue asking other people because we're afraid to trust the answer. Now, I am a huge believer in seeking advice and wise counsel. I value the people in my life to challenge me, give me perspective, sometimes help me see what I can't see for myself. But we also said something this week that I think is very much worth remembering, and that is there is a difference between seeking perspective and seeking permission. Perspective says, help me think. Permission says, tell me I'm allowed. And sometimes if we're honest with ourselves, we aren't looking for another option. We're looking for someone else to give us the permission to trust what we already know. And that brings me to another thought for this week, and that really stayed with me. Sometimes the voice we need to trust the most is the one we've spent years learning to silence. That is what's within us. We should never silence ourselves. And maybe that's because we don't want to disappoint someone. We're trying to meet expectations because someone else's voice became louder than our own. Or maybe because somewhere along the way, we simply stopped believing that our own voice deserved to be heard. Self-trust asks us to listen again. Not because we'll always be right. Not because we shouldn't seek advice. But because this is our life to live. And that's what I want us to take away from this entire week. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to make every decision perfect. And you don't have to silence every doubt. You simply have to keep coming back to yourself. When doubt gets loud, when you make a mistake, when you don't know what comes next, come back to yourself. Because self-trust isn't one big courageous act. It's the quiet decision made again and again not to abandon yourself. When I left a career that had been a part of my identity for more than 3 decades, I couldn't know what was waiting for me on the other side. But I could trust the woman that was walking towards it. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson self-trust has taught me. I need to know exactly what comes next. No, I don't need to know exactly what comes next. This is very different from how I lived the first half of my life, I should say. I don't need to know exactly what comes next. I just need to know whatever comes next, I trust myself to meet it. So as we close out the week, I will leave you with this final thought that I hope you will carry with you. Trust the wisdom you've learned. Trust the wisdom that you've earned. Listen to the voice within you and keep coming back to yourself. Because you may not always know the way, but perhaps you've lived enough life to trust yourself to find it. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you next week.